Starting now. There we go. Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Rudolph, and I am the Baltimore Regional Director with Maryland Capital Enterprises. What we're going to be doing today is talking about cash flow projections, business plans, and accessing capital. That's sort of the lens that we're going to be looking through today is developing those business plans and cash flow projections so that you can ultimately get a loan in the future. A little bit about me. I've been working helping small businesses for over 20 years, first starting in Main Street programs and then moving to the CDFI world 11 years ago when I joined MCE. A little bit about MCE and what a CDFI is. So, a CDFI is a community development financial institution. A lot of folks think of us as a nonprofit bank, but we are not depositories. We are just able to give loans out, and we have a different regulations and different requirements than banks do. We started way back in 1998. We're getting ready to celebrate 30 years in just a few years, serving the three counties of the Lower Eastern Shore, just doing small loans to small businesses. We grew, we developed a relationship with the SBA and started doing larger micro loans to businesses across the Eastern Shore. And in 2012, we hopped over the bridge to the Western Shore. Currently, we are serving all of the Eastern Shore, Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and actually, since this was developed, we've added Harford County and Cecil County. So those are the areas in Maryland that we serve for loans. We also in 2020 became a designated women's business center, which allows us to offer enhanced services to women and minority-owned businesses. And if you want to learn more about all of those things, just check out our websites at marylandcapital.org and Women's Business Center at marylandcapitalenterprises.org. So, lots of folks think of us as lending. That's what folks want to talk about. And we are an intermediary lender, but we do not lend SBA funds. The SBA really, in times that are not emergencies, don't actually give out loans, they back loans. We get our funds from other government agencies, from banks, and from private foundations. And if you apply for a loan and are approved, we're going to get you into the set of money that makes the most sense for you. We also offer free counseling, free training, free webinars, whether or not you apply for a loan. So we can do one-on-one counseling with you. We can help you develop your business plans. We can do a cash flow just like the one I'm going to do for a fake business with you one-on-one. We have many, many more webinars. That will be listed at the end of this presentation. And you just missed it last Friday, but we also have our annual Women's Business Conference, which is held down in Salisbury in March. So, before we get started on the cash flows and the business plan, we need to talk about what it takes to start a business. And you're looking at a blueprint, and that's important because when you think about a business and you think about it as a building, if you go out to, downtown Baltimore, downtown New York, you'll see an empty lot. And there'll be a fence around it with a picture of that beautiful mixed-use skyscraper that's going to be built there. And for, 6, 12, 18 months, it looks like nothing's going on. But what they're doing is they're building the foundation. They're doing all the research, all the studies. They're making sure that the ground is going to support the building. They're doing everything they need to know that so when they get started, the building's going to go up quick and it's going to get filled quick. And that's what it does. After that time, once it starts, they usually go up pretty quick and get filled pretty quick. And that's what we want to kind of let you know. The more time you spend building the foundation of your business, the better chances of success you're going to have. So, what we're going to start talking about is the business plan. And specifically, we're going to talk about writing a business plan to get a loan. We do have a business plan template that goes through all the sections that I'm talking about. And if you'd like that, again, you can just email me at nrudolph@marylandcapital.org. And my email will be on the last slide as well. So, who needs a business plan? The truth is, all business owners need a business plan. They are the blueprint that's going to start your business, and it's going to be the document that grounds you as you're growing your business. So, you really want to make sure that you're updating it as you grow your business. If you decide to start adding new products or services, you want to make sure that they're reflected in your business plan. But really, what most folks use them for is applying for loan and grant applications. And the truth is, right now, there are not a lot of grants available for small businesses. Oftentimes, the most common are given out by municipalities or counties companies as facade improvement grants that in certain areas you can get help with your signage, your ADA accessibility, your security cameras, your lighting, your awnings, things like that. Now, as far as loans, all banks, all CDFIs are going to require a business plan. That doesn't mean a 100-page business plan. In fact, we don't want a 100-page business plan. We want, somewhere between 3 and 7, 8, 9 pages that lets us know what your business does. Now, if you've got a lot of pictures, if you've got a restaurant and you want to add menus, those are addendums and those don't need to be counted in those numbers. But really, what it is it's going to tell us what you're doing and what your plan is, and also what you want out of us. It is a blueprint for your business. So I come from the restaurant world. I opened up a couple of restaurants myself with some other folks. And what when you get really busy, you call yourself in the weeds in the restaurant business. And when you're starting a business, you're going to be in the weeds all the time. If you've got that blueprint and you don't know what to do and you read it, you're going to see where you are and you're going to see what your next step is. It's going to give you clarity. It's going to make it easier for you to grow your business. Now, when you're writing this, you want to consider your audience. And I like to think of a business plan as a resume. So you're going to put all of the information in the order that makes the most sense to you. But then when you're sending it off to other folks, you're going to make decisions based on, who's reading it. So if you're applying for a loan, you're going to want to focus on the fact that you're going to be able to pay back that loan. Because when you're doing the grants and you're talking about hiring from the community and what a great community member you are, the banks love that, but the bottom line is the bottom line. Now, when you're writing the grants, then you're going to really want to talk about all the stuff you're doing for the community. So if you've got all that in your business plan, you can just change things around and you can make sure that it's tailored to the folks that need to read the plan. So what are we looking for in a business plan, specifically when we're looking to fund a loan? Well, of course, as this guy is thinking, can they pay back this loan? Of course, that's the most important question. And here's how we get at it. Number one, we're looking for your passion. What drew you to this business? So, are you opening up an assisted living facility because you saw, older generations of your family not getting the kind of care that you think they deserved and it inspired you to go on this career path? Are you really, really into baking cupcakes and you want to open up a bakery? What drew you to it, and then what's going to drive you to continue? How is that passion going to stay? Oftentimes when things become a business, it can become harder. So you want to make sure that you're going to be able to keep on going even as things get rough. We're also looking for your expertise in the field. Is this a place where you're going to need certifications or trainings, or do you just have experience in the field? Oftentimes, somebody has been renting a booth at a salon and they're ready to open up their own, and that's their experience in the field. Other times it's, getting education and starting a real estate business or something. And also, if you just love something but you're not an expert on it, you can get a mentor to help you out as you start your business. So there's lots of ways you can either have or gain expertise. And then we're going to talk about your research. We're going to go into that a lot more in just a little bit, but we want to understand that you know who your target market is and who your customers are. No matter how your business is run, no matter how many people can take advantage of your products or services, you want to drill down on your target customers. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. Also thinking about contingency plans. What happens if you're unable to work for 6 weeks or 6 months? How will your business go? And the thing that most people forget to do is add and ask. Ask us for what you want us to do. I'm seeking a loan for X amount of dollars. And in fact, we're going to go into that with the executive summary. Now, we break our business plan down into 4 sections: executive summary, marketing, operations, and financial. The executive summary is often written last, but it's going to be the first part of your business plan because it's sort of your elevator speech. It's going to get the folks interested. It's going to let them know who you are. It's always good to start your executive summary with a short paragraph explaining exactly who you are and what you're asking for the reader. So we're going to be doing a cash flow for a business that I invented that is not real, called Nick's Dill Pickles. So in my business plan, I'd say Nick's Dill Pickles LLC is a wholesale pickling operation operated out of Baltimore, Maryland, and we are seeking a loan of $15,000 to purchase pickling equipment and inventory as we get started. If that's your first paragraph, the person reading it is going to know exactly who you are, where you are, how your business is registered, and what you're looking for. And then the rest of the stuff is just going to flow from there. So after that, you're going to want to talk about your story and talk about what drew you to the business. Like I gave the example of the assisted living facility in the past. This is the part where it's sort of the grant or the flower. You're going to want to make people feel your passions. Then you're going to describe briefly what your business does and what's going to separate you from other businesses that are doing similar things. And then at the end, a more detailed ask, specifically, what are you going to purchase and why do you need those items? The executive summary is usually about a page, but it's going to differ based on business to business. And in fact, you know how to tell your story better than we do. As long as all this information is in your business plan, you can put it in different orders if it makes sense. The next section is going to be your marketing plan. And that is so much more than just how you're going to advertise your business. In fact, this is going to be the largest part and it's going to be the most important part. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to describe your industry. You're going to talk about what you're doing and you're going to talk about how your industry is growing specifically in the place where you are. So you want to do some market research. And the way you do that is you use Google and you use your connections. If you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, they may have information. Local government economic agencies may have some information, but you want to find some articles that you can quote that talk about how you are growing in a growing industry. And if you can do it specifically where you are, all the better. Then you're going to talk about your target customer. Again, you can serve everybody, but if you're getting this group of people in, you know you're going to make the amount of money you need to make. So going back to that salon example, if you're opening up a salon, let's say in downtown Baltimore, you might say, look, I'm going to be looking to get, African American women between the ages of 35 and 65 who make over $75,000 a year. Because if I'm getting those folks in, they've got the money to spend and they're going to keep me afloat. And then if anybody else comes in, that's great too. You're also going to want to list your competition. And no matter how unique you think your business is, you are going to have competition. So make sure that you list them. And I'd say list at least three and talk about what they do well. They're existing, they're successful. There's got to be a reason for that. And then talk about how you're going to thrive in the market with them by identifying your special sauce in more detail. When you're thinking about your competitors, you want to think locally, regionally, and nationally. And what that means is that, like say you're opening up a comic book store, you might want to say, look, here are the two places that are near me, but also people can buy stuff off Amazon.com, so they're a competitor as well. So we understand then that it's your customer service that's going to get people into your store. Talk about your pricing. Are you high end, middle of the road, or a value proposition, and why? And then you're going to talk about your advertising. How are you going to get the word out? And the words social media campaign are not enough. We're going to want to know what platforms and what you plan to do. Or are you going to do traditional advertising, radio, newspapers, television, billboards? Or are you in a more networking type of business where your advertising is going to conferences or going to networking events or going to doctor's office and hospitals to try to get them to use your services? All of that is advertising, all of that is marketing, and all of that is okay. The next section is going to be shorter than you think it's going to be, which is your organization and operations section. So again, you're going to lay out your structure of the business. Are you an LLC? Are you a corporation? There's different reasons why you might want to be one or the other, and we can talk individually, about what makes the most sense for you. Then your location. Are you a home based? Are you never going to actually touch and see your customers? Or are you a brick and mortar facility, or maybe an online facility, or a mix of, two or all three of those. And if you are having a brick and mortar place, where are you going to have it? And do you own it or do you have a lease yet? Then you're going to talk about your hours. Specifically, if you've got a business, that they're going to, what are your open hours? And if you don't have a business that folks are going to, when are you answering the phones? When are you working with the clients? We want to know, what your schedule is going to be. Then we want to know about your employees. Are you going to have employees or are you just going to run the business yourself? If you are they going to be contract employees? Are they going to be full-time employees, under your business? And there's different reasons to do either one depending on the business type. Then you want to talk about your insurance. Is just a basic general liability policy enough, or are you dealing with something like foods or kids or animals or medicine or driving around where the insurance is going to get a little bit higher? And you want to make sure you understand what your insurance is going to be before you start the business, because it can be more expensive than you think it's going to be. And it is a requirement, especially if you're going to be getting a loan. We're going to want to make sure that you are insured. Then you want to talk about your growth. Are you planning to expand? Do you eventually want to franchise out, or are you just opening up a shop that you want to run and when you retire, that's going to be it, or maybe you'll pass it along to your children or family members? That's your exit strategy. Are you just going to sell it? Are you going to give it away, or are you just going to run it until you can't run it anymore? All of those are okay. Just let us know. And then again, the contingency plan. Who is going to be able to step in if you are unable to work and operate the business for a significant period of time? The next section is your financial plan, and this is going to be different based on whether you're a startup or an existing business. If you're a startup, we're going to want to know your startup cost. You want to break out all of your equipment, your overhead, your inventory. We're going to want to know that you understand your break even. How much are you going to sell? How many services are you going to have to sell in order to break even? And that means pay your bills, pay your employees, and pay yourself. We're going to want to see cash flow projections. 24 months is required, but 36 is always better. That can be part of the business plan or an addendum. If it is part of the business plan, that's going to make your business plan a little bit longer. So don't count those in those 3 to 10 pages. And then you want to discuss your credit, right? So if you've got some personal credit issues, let us know as soon as possible. The reason for that is the thing that banks and financiers, dislike the most is surprises. So if we know ahead of time that, 2 years ago, you got COVID and were not able to work for 2 months and you got behind on your bills, but now you can show that in the last year you've caught up and you're making all your payments. Your credit score is still going to probably be pretty low. But if we know that that's happened, we know why, and we can see what you've been doing to improve your credit, then we might be able to mitigate that and get you that loan. But if you tell us you've got great credit and we pull it and we see these things, that's going to say something about the character and it's going to make it harder for me to argue to get you that loan. Now, if you're an existing business, we're going to want to see all of that except for the startup costs. But if you are buying equipment, we're going to want to see that breakdown. And then we're going to want to see your existing financials. If you've been around for 2 years or more, we're going to want to see 2 years of business taxes, 2 years of profit and loss, and your most recent quarterly balance sheet. Of course, if you've only been around for a year, you're not going to have 2 years of that. If you feel like showing us more of that is going to be helpful, then show us more years. That's absolutely fine. So that is basically the business plan section. I wanted to see if there were any questions before I move over to the cash flows, because during that presentation, we're going to be actually developing a cash flow document. Nope. Okay. So we are going to talk about cash flows now. What are they and why do we need to do them? So they're just a cash flow. They're showing you the amount of money going in and the amount of going out so you can figure out whether your business is going to be profitable. Because if you're bringing in $5 million a week, but it costs you 5.5 to do all your services, you don't have a successful business. So we have this template here on the right-hand side. It's big, it's scary, but as you'll see, it's really not. But it's good to know that this is an estimate and we understand that it's an estimate. This is a living document. You're going to change it throughout the life of your business. And not only will not all of the cells be accurate, there's a good chance that the vast majority are going to be different than what you put in there. And that's fine. What you want to do is be realistic and not too bullish. You know you're going to make $2 billion in year one, but if you put that on your cash flows, it's going to scare away folks who are trying to give you a loan because that just seems like too much for them. So you want to show that in a worst case scenario, you're going to be able to break even and you're going to be able to pay for yourself. So we have an example of a person who made handmade wedding invitations. They cost $1,000 per wedding and it was a one-person shop. Well, on the cash flow projections, they said, look, well, there's 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland. It's $1,000 a pop. I'm going to make $10 million a year. Well, of course, not everybody uses those invitations. Not everybody's got $1,000 for invitations. People elope, they go to the courthouse, they make their own, they don't even have them. So we said, look, show us that you can make what you need to make on, a couple a month. And then, if you do more, then great. Now, in this, you're going to want to break up your income and your expenses as much as possible. On the template, especially in the expenses, there's going to be a list of things, but you can feel free to change those as it impacts your business. So what you want to think about, especially on your expenses, is making sure that you've got enough for everything and that you're doing your investment expenses. And investment expenses are expenses are things like your advertising, your bookkeeping, your lawyer reserve, and your insurance. Those are things that as you put that money into your business, it's going to help you make more money in the long run. Now, as far as income, you want to break it up as much as possible. So if you're doing the restaurant, you might break it up between dine-in and carry out and catering, or you might say, look, we've got a bar, and I think we're going to do 70% food and 30% alcohol. And that way, if 6 months from now you're looking at your books and saying, look, I'm doing 60% food and 40% alcohol. What is the issue or what is the good thing happening here? Is our food program bad or is our drink program so good that it's drawing more people? And then you can use that to figure out where you're going to invest some of your profits to strengthen your business to make more profit. You also want to think about if your sales change month to month. A landscaper is going to have a different December than April. You want to make sure that you show that. And then we also want to make sure that you're paying yourself. We want to make sure that as you're growing your business, you're able to keep a roof over your head, keep yourself clothed and fed, and have a little money for something fun as well. So, why do we need to go through this exercise? Well, it's going to be required for most loans. It's just a good planning tool. As you do that, you might find some expenses you hadn't thought about, which might make you consider how and when you're going to open your business. It shows you when you can start taking money out of the business, and also it's just good governance. The more you know about, what you're expecting, the better you're going to be able to judge whether or not your business is successful. So, what you're going to need to start out with this is just a template. And you can use ours or you can use one that makes more sense to you. For our loans, we do require that they're broken out monthly for at least 24 months. You need to know how much money you have in the bank specifically for the business. Most startups, that answer is $0, and that's okay. You want to know all your income streams and an estimate about how much you think you're going to be making. Same with the expenses, except for how much you think you're going to be spending, especially thinking about payroll if you have employees. One thing that folks always forget to do, or not always, but often forget to do, is put their loan in as income and their loan payments in as expenses. And that's important because both of those things are true. And then you want to know your inventory cost. If you're selling a widget, if it costs $10, how much are you, if you're selling it for $10, how much are you paying for the materials to create it or to buy it wholesale? So now we're going to do is we're going to create a cash flow. So I'm going to pull down the PowerPoint and bring up the cash flow. Alrighty. So as you'll see here, this is our blank cash flow sheet. Let's get to year one. So this is for Nick's Dill Pickles. This is a business, as I said, does not exist. And all of these numbers are going to be not real. I don't know how much it costs to start a pickling business. So the first thing we're going to do is put the month as the next month. So if you're applying in February, you're going to put March in. So we're going to do March of 2026. It will just fix all these across. But the truth is, unless you've got seasonal business, don't think of them as the name of the months. Just think of them as months 1 through 12. So then we're going to talk about, how much money do I have on hand? So, I've been good. I've been saving. I sold some of my old baseball cards from when I was a kid, and I got $1,500 to start out, not 15,000, I wish. All right. So as I said before, I'm going to take a loan out for $15,000. Now, again, these are not real numbers that we're going to talk about, but let's talk about the income before we talk about the expenses because that's more fun. So if I get that money in the middle of March, I'm probably not going to be able to start, actually selling pickles until at least the middle of April. So I'm thinking of April as a 2-week month. Now, in April in Baltimore, there's only the Waverly Farmers Market on Saturdays that's big that I would be going to. So if I'm just going to be going to the last two of those, folks don't know me, but it's going to be crowded because the weather is nice. So I think I might make, $2,500 across those two Saturdays. Wholesale means going to a restaurant, and I figured that restaurants are going to spend about $250 a month on my pickles. But nobody knows who I am yet, and I don't know, in this scenario, any restaurant owners. So in month one, I'm probably not going to have any wholesale. Now online, I've got family who loves me and friends who love me all over the country. And in that first month, some of them are going to buy some jars of pickles online. So then we go to May. This is when the big farmers market on Sundays opens up. I'm going to go there as well. And so, now I've got my full month and I've got 2 days. So there's going to be a big jump because I'm going to be seeing a lot more people. So let's say $6,000. And, during that first month, one restaurateur saw me. And I actually think that $500 a month, as we grow for online sales just straight across is a good goal to have. So, June, more folks are going to hear about us. Schools are starting to let out, and so there's more vacationing going on. Folks coming to Baltimore. Lots of folks like getting into the neighborhoods and seeing the farmers markets. So, I'm going to see a little bit of a growth there. And then I'm going to, add a restaurant a month, I think. So July, again, I'm getting a little bit more popular, so I'll have a little bit more growth, and I'll have another restaurant. Um, August, again, it's hot. People are out in the mornings. They're going to their farmers markets. We're going to make a little bit more, and we're going to add a restaurant. September, I think that'll probably be similar. It's getting back to school. Folks are spending some money on that, so we're probably not going to grow there, but I think I'll add another restaurant. Then in October, things might start slowing down a little bit. So we'll do 8,000, add another restaurant. November and December, both farmers markets are still open. People are starting to think about Christmas presents. These things are jarred and preserved so they can last for a while. So it might go back up a bit in November. And then we'll add another restaurant. And, December, it might go up a little bit more with adding another restaurant. January, we're back down to one farmer's market. It's cold, it's slow. We're going to see a big drop. And then we're going to add another restaurant. Um, and then February, again, it's cold, um, but we will add another restaurant. So there we got year one. And this is our amount of money that we are going to be making for the year, including the $15,000 loan. That would be $108,750. So looking pretty good right now, but let's see what our expenses are. So the first thing I want to do is figure out my inventory costs. Again, not a real number, but I'm going to say that it cost me, $3 to make $10 worth of pickles. So the way I'm going to show that is I'm going to see where my income lines are, which are 13 potentially through 17 because the loan doesn't have any inventory cost. So we're going to do C13 through C17, go out of there, and then multiply that by zero point 0.3. Month one, we haven't sold any pickles, so we don't have there, but there we go. So in this job, you probably wouldn't have employees, but just for the sake of the spreadsheet, we're going to pretend that I'm going to hire employees that are going to be on payroll. So month one, I'm going to be by myself, but month two, I'm going to need some help. So maybe $500 for the month. I've made more money. I might want to take a weekend day off in the second month. So, I'm going to hire more folks there. Keep that about $1,000, through the summer, and October, November, and December. And then in January and February, I'm probably doing it on my own again. My payroll expenses, I am going to assume are 10% of the pay. So I'm just going to again just do C24 and multiply that by multiply that by 0.1. Alrighty. So I am not going to need like a trash service. Office supplies, I am going to need, labels. I'm going to need invoices and things like that. I'll probably buy a laptop to start and a little printer to start. So maybe we'll use that $1,500 to buy those. And then maybe $50 a month after that, just to replenish ink and things like that. I'm not aware of any of any dill pickle magazines or groups, so we're not going to do a subscription. I'm not going to need storage at first. Advertising, I do want to get the word out, but again, this is a small business, so maybe I'll start the first 2 months with about $150, bring it down to 100 for the next 3 months, and then maybe keep it at 75 a month, there on out. If we make more money, we can spend more money on advertising. Distribution, because the folks are going to be paying their shipping and handling, I'm not going to put anything in there. Now, accounting and legal, this is a small business, so as you know, we're probably not going to need a lawyer or an accountant on staff. But I think that if I save $50 a month from the get-go, when I do need those folks, I'm going to have a little bit of money in the bank to pay for those. So I'm just going to put that down as an expense. Now we're going to do my rent. Now, rent is two things because it's both the place I'm going to make the pickles and the farmers market. So that is going to change throughout the year. So firstly, it's $500 a month for the pickling place. So I'm just going to put that in the rent as 500 a month, and that's not going to change. But the rent includes utilities. So I'm going to put market fees um, instead of utilities. And so again, these are not numbers that I know. So these are not real numbers. But we'll do 250 for just the one, and then it'll probably be 1,000 um, to go to the ones when we're open all both of them, and then bring it down to 250 again. And then insurance, again, this is an estimate number, but I'm going to say $150 a month. Now, taxes, there's going to be my annual $300 fee. There's going to be probably some Baltimore City fees for health department and things like that. So I'm going to think high and say $750. There's no professional fees in the pickling world. So then we're going to go to my loan payment. If I get the money in March, I'm probably going to start paying in either April or May. So we're just going to think positive and go May. This is going to be a 3-year loan. This is not going to be a real number, but I'm going to assume it's about $410 a month. Already. I have not taken out any other debts for the business yet, but I've got my startup costs. So I think the pickling equipment is going to cost me about 10,000 and the other 5,000 is going to be my buffer. And this is a part-time job right now. I'm keeping my day job, so I'm not going to be paying myself in year one. So I started out with $1,500. I got a $15,000 loan. I made 10 $410 payments on that loan. And I have $37,850 left in the bank at the end of the year. That means that this business is profitable. So now we're going to take these numbers and we're going to see what a second year of growth is going to look like. I find the easiest way to do that is go back to the top, select all, copy it, and paste it right into year two. Go all the way to the top, and then go down to the bottom, get that 37,850 and put that in here. 37,850. Now our incomes are going to change. So March, it's getting a little bit nicer. People know about us. So from 3,000, we're going to go up to 3,500. And then we'll do 5,000 in April. And then I think we're going to be busy enough that we're going to be doing $10,000 a month straight through while both markets are open. And then back down to 3,000 in the cold times. And I think $2,500 a month in wholesale is about the most that I'm going to be doing with this little operation. And then $500 for that month for online sales. No second loan. Remember to take that out. Now you're going to see we're going to have to add some wages here. That all the inventory is already there across the year. The payroll costs are there when we do have employees. We are not going to need all of the office supplies again, but something will probably break. So I'm going to put $250 in the first month there. My advertising, I was doing pretty well, so I think I'm going to go to $100 a month just because I can afford to, and maybe we can get some more business out of that. Accounting and legal isn't going to change. My rent is a multi-year lease. It's not going to go up. Market fees aren't going to change, and my insurance isn't changing. Taxes and fees are also going to stay the same, but I am going to be making my loan payments every month. I am not going to be spending that money to start up again, but I am going to want in the middle of the year to maybe put a $5,000 in reserve or escrow in case something breaks, I've got that money to fix it. Now you see I've got $89,000 left at the end of the year. I think I can start taking some money out of the business. So if I take $2,500 a month out of the business, to pay myself, that's $30,000 for the year. We do consider that profit for the business. The escrow as well, that $5,000. So you're making really this 59,130 plus 35,000. That is your profit. You're also doing a good job of paying off your loan. So what we're showing here is this is a successful business that if these numbers were real, could possibly, be a successful business. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as Nick's Dills sample 3/11/26, and this will be available that I can email to everybody here. Before I get this off of the screen, are there any questions particularly about the cash flows? Oop, okay, so we're gonna go back to the PowerPoint and talk about how you actually get money and then wrap everything up. So first, one last thing about the cash flows, a few things to consider, things that people often forget. Oops. First, bringing that year-end money to the next year, so you're not starting with zero in month one and year two. Taking out too much or too little for yourself, not adding those accountants or legal or marketing, having a negative cash flow for too long. You may not be in the black, you're in the red for the first 3 or 4 months, and that's okay. But if it's a year later and you're still not making money, then we need to fix something. You want to again make sure that your loan and loan payments are listed and that your expectations are realistic. Now, what do you do that with them? You use them to apply for funds, but you also use them to make sure you're hitting your goals and also to help you growth planning. You do want to update them as numbers change. So now let's talk about funding. So, what does it take to apply for a loan at MCE? And this is true for a lot of CDFIs. So, first, we do all of our intake and applications online. Other people may have paper applications. But if you go to our website and you look at the top right-hand corner, you're going to see a Get Started Here. That's the client intake form. That's going to let us, know who you are, give us a baseline, and within 3 days of filling that out, a business counselor will contact you and get everything started. The next two are the business loan application and the personal information supplement. The business loan application is where you're making the ask and you're talking about the business and if it exists, a little bit about the business history. The personal information supplement will need to be filled out by anybody who owns 20% or more of the business, and this is about them personally. In the personal information supplement, you're going to be talking about debts or liabilities. Um, things that you own, like your home or your car. You're talking about your income. You're going to talk about your monthly expenses and your employment history. On that, we're also going to require that you give us a photo of your driver's license or government ID. Now, on the business loan application, this is where you're going to be uploading most of your supporting documents. We're going to need the business plan, those cash flows, some sort of proof that you were turned down by a loan from a financial institution. That means that if you went to your bank and they say, hey, we don't do startups, that's good enough. Then, if you've been around, we're going to want to see your profit and loss statement. We're going to want to see that quarterly balance sheet, 2 years of business taxes, 2 years of personal taxes, and 3 months of business and personal bank statements. If you've not been around, then you can eliminate the business and taxes and bank statements. Everything else here is optional. If you've got reference letters, send them in. If you're renting that chair at a salon and you're going to open up your own and you come to us with a stack of 50 letters from people saying that they're going to move for you, you're probably going to get that loan. Other things you want to add are your resume. If you're going into a place, your proposed lease or your LOI, any estimates or invoices or contracts that you have. If you're in a licensure place, show us what licenses you have. If you've already got your website or your socials up, show us those. Anything that's going to help tell your story is going to help us. Now, what do you need to get a loan from us? You need to have been turned down. We're going to want to see a clearly established business idea through that business plan. We're going to want to know your experience or how you're going to gain it. We're going to look at the strength of your cash flow and the strength of your collateral. Collateral is required, but we can be pretty flexible. Of course, a wholly owned home is the best. But as I said, we can use automobiles. We've been able to get pretty flexible, even use other people's property. We're also looking for reasonable credit. As you notice here, there is not a minimum credit score. What we are looking for is what you've really been doing in the last 12 months, looking particularly at missed payments and past due amounts. There are a few requirements, though. There cannot be any bankruptcies discharged in the last 24 months, and you cannot have a tax debt without a payment plan to close a loan. We're also looking for the general economic conditions of the venture. That means, is this the right time and right place to open this business? And that could be either, global economy or regional economy, or it could be you're opening up the sixth Chinese restaurant on this block. How are you going to survive? Then we also want to know your ability to repay that loan. So if the business is not successful, can you get back in the workforce because you are still going to owe that money? So, our loans in particular, we've got two that we have all of the time. So this is the first one, the just the typical small business loan. If you've been around for 2 years or less, you can apply for 5,000 to about 35,000. And if you've been around 2 years, more than 2 years, then you can apply for up to 150,000. The terms are going to be dependent on the size of the loan. A $50,000 loan will probably be 6 or 7 years. Anything over 100 will probably be 10 years. The interest rates are currently set at 6 to 12%. Most of these loans are going out about 8%. We do require that collateral. If you're using real estate, we're going to need an appraisal that's a year old or newer, but don't get that until your loan is approved. As I said, anybody with 20% or more is going to have to personally guarantee this loan. If you have an ownership structure with so many people that nobody owns 20%, we're going to want to see 3 or 4 folks put it up there. The application fee is $100 plus $25 per credit report, so that's per owner. We do a TransUnion pull and we do a soft pull, so it does not impact your credit. We can also show you your full credit report. If you get a yes, then there are some closing fees associated with it. Generally, a $50,000 loan goes out a little bit north of $48,000 because we don't make you bring a check to get a check. We just take it out of the loan proceeds. We do take the loan payments out automatically every month from your business checking account. But if you know a week ahead of time that you're not going to be able to make that payment and you let us know, we will figure something out. We can defer, we can interest only, we can even restructure the loan. On the other side, if you're going gangbusters and you're making all kinds of money, there are no prepayment penalties as long as your loan is 30 days old. So if in month two, you get that $1 million contract and you've got a $30,000 loan with us, you can just pay it off for exactly what you owe on that day. We are going to visit you twice a year while you have that loan. It can be virtual or in person. We're going to want to see your books. We're going to want to talk about your business, and we're going to let you know about resources that we have for you. Now, the big question, what kind of businesses are eligible and what kind of expenses are eligible? So any small business in the counties that are on the Eastern Shore and then Cecil, Hartford, Baltimore, Baltimore City, or Anne Arundel. Sorry, we've got a tornado warning. So if I lose my power, that's what's going on there. Where was I there? Um, the business types. Okay, so most business types in those counties are okay. There are a few that aren't, sort of the traditional sin industry, so 100% alcohol, adult bookstores, things like that. We are able to work with both medical and recreational cannabis. If you are in real estate investment, we can't purchase investment properties and we can't pay to rehab investment properties. We can build out your office. We can build out the building that you're going to occupy at least 51% of. We can buy your trucks and we can buy like your big power tools. We can't buy things like screws and drywall and things like that. As far as uses otherwise, any business related expense, basically, unless you're a home-based business, we can't pay your rent, mortgage, or utilities. Then we've got our credit builder loan. This is for up to $5,000. This is for folks who maybe just want to dip their toe into entrepreneurship, maybe have some credit issues in the past and they want to improve their credit, or they have an existing business and need the money quicker than our normal loan process. These go up to $5,000. Generally, it's a 2-year term. It's always 9%, and we don't require collateral, but it is, of course, encouraged. The application fee is much less at $50 plus a credit report fee, and the closing costs are $75, no matter the size of the loan. Everything else is exactly the same for this loan. So We are living in a place in Maryland where there are more small business resources than anywhere else in the country for free. So take advantage of all of the folks listed on here. Your library probably has a small business center. Your county has an economic development agency. Talk to your chamber of commerce and join it. The SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center, is run out of the SBA. You can get a free mentor there, either through them or through the senior core of retired executives, also through the SBA's score. Your local universities, we work a lot with Salisbury and Morgan State, but any of them, even if you didn't go there, there's always classes looking to help small businesses. They often have small business centers. They also have people you can hire with college degrees. And then, if you've got local business organizations, join those organizations. I like to end this with the 5 things to remember when you're applying for business capital. Number one, as you're starting your business, keep your day job. You want that income coming in. You need an accountant. Basically, even if you are an accountant, there are quarterly deadlines or quarterly payments. If you miss them, you are no longer in good standing and you're no longer eligible for loans through us. Ask for the help. As I said before, there are so many free resources. We are not competitors, we are collaborators. So talk to all of us. We all have different experiences. Just let us know. You want to keep your money in the bank when you're applying for loans too. This is not the time to be buying houses or cars or opening up credit cards, unless, of course, you have to. And then no business is an island. You really need to be a part of your community because people go to small businesses because they are part of that community. So join your chamber, join your Main Street, and give back to local charities. Make people proud to come into your shop. And lastly, these are a couple of the webinars that we've got coming up. I'm going to go deeper into talking funding on March 18th. Tomorrow, if you're into government contracting, that is going to be an amazing webinar. The social media basics is a good place to get started. So just go ahead and look at all of these. They are great, great programs. And then with that, I'll open it up for any final questions. My email here is at the bottom, and Rudolph@marylandcapital.org. Alrighty. Well, it's hearing none. I am going to say goodbye. I always think of my best questions when this is over, so feel free to email me. And of course, if you wanted to get these slides, the blank templates, and the one that we filled out tonight. Thank you for coming, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.